This Week in Startups is brought to you by Campaign Monitor, email marketing platform used by more than 250,000 businesses worldwide. Try Campaign Monitor for free at campaignmonitor.com/twist. Listeners who sign up and become a customer receive a free t-shirt. Squarespace. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use offer code TWIST to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. And Vettery. Hiring marketplace connecting top tech talent with growing companies. A comprehensive tech salary report is available to Twist listeners for free at vettery.com/twist. That's VETTERY.com/twist.
I am super excited about this fireside discussion. We have three of, I would consider, the hardest working investors in the business right now. We work with all of these firms and respect them greatly. Please welcome Hunter Walk from Homebrew, Andrea Zurek from XG Ventures, and my old friend Garry Tan from Initialized Capital. I'm going to sit here, an awkward distance away from y'all. Nice to see you.
Appropriate distance.
An appropriate distance. Thanks for coming. You're all great investors, and as I said, sincerely, we love referring our founders to you, and I hope vice versa, because every time we send somebody to y'all, you are responsive, you get back to them, you take the work seriously. You may have overheard the last Q&A there as I was warming up the audience. And I want to talk to you about the reality of raising funds and your lives on the road raising funds. I know Initialized, Garry, you just raised your third fund, fourth fund?
Fourth fund.
Congratulations, over 200 million. Homebrew, you've done 2 or 3?
We've raised 3.
3. And Andrea, you invest your own money because you're a Googler and you just made a shit ton of money, so you don't have to go deal with LPs.
Which is nice, but
yes.
Yeah.
You ever think that maybe you want to deal with the nonsense of having a bunch of LPs?
Do we or do we not?
Do you want to ever? Do you aspire to do that?
Originally, I just want to make sure the mic is actually on.
Yeah.
And kudos on this, by the way, versus the other mics.
Yeah, those don't work so well.
Yeah. But originally, yes, but actually we like the freedom of not having LPs because we're essentially our own bosses and we can have our own, wins. And if we make our own mistakes, it's on us,
Garry, talk about your relationship with LPs and how that impacts how you invest. Because I was just giving some advice to the last founder about just be careful pitching, do-gooder stuff in a world where you only get your next fund if there's returns on the last, correct?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, we are looking at returns, and we're looking for things that could be 10x, 100x, 1000x, just like you. And so at the end of the day, we do have to view all of our investments from that lens. This is not a nonprofit. We don't have a double bottom line. On the other hand, I would like to caveat that the best ideas address some sort of fundamental need in society in a way that, in a scalable way that, frankly, a lot of other methods don't actually have. So, a nonprofit may be able to do a lot of good, but a nonprofit that also has a sustainable business within it can do even more. And then a profitable business that also happens to have a do-good aspect or something that society really needs, that's sort of the most scalable. That can have the most amount of impact in the shortest amount of time.
What company, when you look at your portfolio, triggers that for you the most?
Well, there's one that I can't talk about, but it's solving a fundamental need that we're sort of seeing play out across all social media right now. And so
it automatically deletes your accounts.
Yes.
It is interesting. It's like this social media thing, we all thought this was going to be good for society. How did we get that so wrong, Hunter?
Are you directing that at me because I led product at YouTube?
No.
Look,
I'm directing it at you because you spend a disproportionate amount of your time on Twitter debating with me and other.
I'm a 10x tweeter. I can be
Yes.
very efficient in small amounts of time. Look, I think
I'm being slightly facetious, but yeah.
I think we're in a phase of some of these products where a few things are happening. First is we've normalized all the good stuff. Like we forget all the wonderful things these products do for us, and we are realizing, adjusting to some of the negatives. the platforms themselves, many of which, because of homogenous teams that were not experiencing, protected from some of the things going on the platform. That's homogenous in terms of geography, homogenous in terms of background, homogenous in terms of gender, in terms of race. Maybe came late to realizing some of the things that were going on the platform, and also sort of got themselves wound up this notion of being a neutral platform, which means that you have to stay, apart from your community. You have to just create a perfect set of laws that can be adjudicated through code. And because in the quest for sort of software margins, policy teams, operations teams are understaffed. They're treated as a cost item that needs to be managed versus, maybe it actually turns out that there's, another 500,000 basis points of margin that need to come out of these companies to go to moderation. And that's what we're working through right now. And I think you finally sort of see through regulatory pressure, through pressure from employees, through pressure from users, that the sort of CEOs and founders of these companies are realizing that maybe their legacy is going to be determined by what happens over the next few years and not, the movie that came out a decade ago.
Garry, you seem to have some thoughts on this. I know you did Posterous back in the day, which
Thanks
was
for being a user.
my favorite product ever. I mean, now it's like Buffer is, I guess, the
Fantastic.
enterprise version of what you did with Posterous. Anybody here a Posterous user from
Yeah.
10 years ago? Raise your hand. Wow, there's some old school people.
Yeah.
We invested in Posterous.
Oh, yes, that's right.
I called it Posterous. Is Posterous? I've been mispronouncing it for all these years.
Oh, it's Posterous,
Yeah, I
but
thought
Okay.
it was Posterous.
it could be either.
Okay.
That was part of our branding, that you could, sort of debate it.
Yeah.
Maybe you'd remember it.
Yeah.
Because you're fighting obscurity, of course, as you teach all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And what a great product, though. You could email. I love the email feature. Just email your photo, and then it wound up on all your accounts.
Oh, I have a funny story about that, actually. So Chris Sacca actually invested, and I think he also invested in Instagram, if that's correct.
Yeah.
And when Instagram launched, he sent me an email. Sent me and Sachin an email, and he said, "Hey, what do you think about Instagram?" And we kind of didn't really pay attention to it very much at the moment. We were like, "Oh, startups die of suicide, not homicide, so we're not going to pay too much attention." And then in the end, that was something that really flatlined our growth, because the primary scenario for Posterous often was getting photos off of your iPhone, and there were no apps yet.
Right.
But Instagram was the first app to both nail sort of the social viral loop, but also be a really it would start uploading the photo in the background the second you selected it. And it was like that simple optimization made it, at least a part of what made it what it was. And so we didn't pay attention to it at all. And it's like, and Sacca actually called it out. He was like, "Hey, what do you think about that?"
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I wanted to bring up with the angel investing panel, is that, the best angel investors, they're doing that all the time. Like, there's this idea maze that's happening.
Right. What's
And-
interesting about that is Sacca didn't invest in Instagram. He invested in bourbon, which was the precursor. They were
Yeah.
going to do a Gowalla, which I was an investor, a competitor, and they were into location. They're like, this location thing doesn't seem to be working too well for Gowalla and Foursquare. They seem to have it locked up. Maybe we'll just do this image filter thing, because people are using Photoshop to make their photos better. I am obsessed with email. You know this because I'm probably emailing you now about the podcast. We have a This Week in Startups podcast list, and we send all of our listeners updates on the podcast. Who's been on the show, maybe a live episode's coming up, live stream is firing off, and we constantly get new people finding out about our podcast. And so we use Campaign Monitor, which is an easy-to-use email marketing platform. And it comes with incredible templates, and it's got a drag and drop editor, which I'm about to show you here, as well as 24/7 customer support and over 250,000 businesses using them all over the world. But it's so quick to set up something called email automation. What is email automation? This is one of the greatest tools you can add to your startup or business's success. And in the example I'm going to show you, we set up an automation. I'll hit play here and I'll sportscast it. And you see us putting in the logo and putting in some spacing, adding images, and we're telling you about all the different episodes on This Week in Startups. We're seeing a preview on an iPhone. And also, we say, hey, if somebody signs up for the list, wait 15 minutes and then send them this best of email with shows that we've done in the past. And then it says, wait 3 days,
and then send them another best of show. In other words, if you sign up for our mailing list and you just found out about This Week in Startups, we can set this drip campaign to give you drip, 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 drip. A couple of emails letting you know about our events, about past episodes. And people love this kind of stuff. It re-engages people. It's not enough to just collect the email. You have to think about the emails you're sending to people. You have to make them look beautiful. You have to have a clear call to action. And here is your clear call to action right now. I want you to try Campaign Monitor for free at campaignmonitor.com/twist. Listeners who sign up and become a customer will receive a free t-shirt. You can really change the course of your business by using campaignmonitor.com. I love the product. My team loves the product. And let me tell you something. Doing this automation used to be something that you had to work with a developer to do. That's why so few companies did it. Now Campaign Monitor has made it quick and easy, and they have a huge library of examples. So go there right now, campaignmonitor.com/twist. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode.
Do you think there's an opportunity to invest in a startup, Garry, that can take on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter in 2019?
Well, in 2008, we started a blog platform. It was so much later than when people thought you could start a blog platform. Yeah. And so to me, it really matters what's the thin edge of the wedge, what community can we take down that would allow that to happen. For Facebook, it was obviously Harvard. And so there has to be some sort of initial user base that could be highly engaged and grow from there. And so that's...
So I have a sort of generational point of view of this. I think every 3 to 5 years you have a chance to build a new scale social platform because you have a generation that's coming of age with technology that needs to feel like they're claiming a space as their own. They need to enter an empty namespace. They need to feel like it's something that they discover. And it doesn't mean that teenagers won't also use Facebook or won't also use Instagram. But I just think fundamentally there's a chance to get to scale because it started with college because that's when you used to get access to technology. Then it started with high schoolers because that's when you used to get access to technology. Now it's teens and preteens because that's when you get access to technology. And everybody wants to make their mark on a space that feels like it's of them and they're discovering it. So fundamentally, if you can figure out how to amass that age group during their coming of age, you will always be able to build something to scale. Is it going to be as valuable, as durable as some of these sort of existing networks? TBD, but you definitely have a chance to build something.
Plus platform shift. So if Facebook actually almost missed it, they had to pay up to buy Instagram and WhatsApp.
Yeah. If they didn't do that, Andrea, we'd be probably talking about Facebook the way we're talking about Snapchat today, correct?
Yeah.
Do you see anybody pitching, I want to take on Facebook, I want to take on Twitter as an angel early stage investor?
We don't see that so much anymore,
Yeah.
but I know what you're talking about. It's always like the flavor of the day. Like
Yeah.
first it was like, we're the next Birchbox, or we're the next Uber, or the next Lyft, It gets a little old, I feel like. It's like, why don't you just come up with your own fresh new idea? So many entrepreneurs are sort of like a little bit like laggards, I guess, and it's very rare, and it's special if you come across an entrepreneur that's, a little bit more forward-looking. And for us as angels, that's always like, something that we have to pay attention to.
And what stage do you like to engage with the founder? We talk internally
Yeah.
about our Goldilocks Zone being,
Yeah.
you've launched the product and have a little bit of traction, like a couple of customers,
I'd say-
and you don't have like a competitive Series A. What's your Goldilocks Zone? Where is your sweet spot for investing?
I'd say it's a little bit further along than your Goldilocks zone. We like to see a little bit more proof of concept, more, in-market success, true real revenue. It'd be great if they're past like the friends and family raise, a little bit more traction in the marketplace. So we are risk takers, but we're not those, like pre-seed initial risk takers.
Where do you find yourself now, Hunter?
I think it depends on the person. So what I'm going to say is that we want to invest when I believe that the team has done the minimum amount of work to prove to themselves that they want to spend the next 10 years working on this. So it doesn't come to a particular like, oh, I need to see this revenue or I need to see that. Let me give you an example. Sometimes we get people who are building marketplaces. And maybe they've never built a marketplace before, and they come in and they're pitching, and they want to raise a $2 to $3 million round, and they have a nice idea, but they haven't done any work to figure out whether any of their hypotheses about how to build liquidity on either side are legitimate. And you don't need even a friends and family round to do that. You can take a few $100, throw up a landing page, throw up some ads, and see whether you're able to drive and capture. And I'd look at people who have that idea and haven't done that work, and I said, forget even me writing a check. Like, don't you want to prove to yourself that like some of the core fundamentals here are going to work before you sign up to do this? Maybe if that same person walks in that room and has 10 years of marketplace experience, has done it before, basically can list through the 100 things that they've done or will do, then maybe I write a check to that person, even though they're quote unquote no further along. So I think there's a lot of people who say, it's getting the bar is getting higher and higher for seed, and I'm not so sure that's true on a quantitative standpoint. But in a world of noise, maybe it's true on a qualitative standpoint. We probably over-index on sort of founder market fit also, and so wanting to know like, why does this problem matter to you, and why are you going to work on this together? Some of that stuff matters way more to me than a set of quantitative KPIs when we're making an investment decision.
You want to know the founder's not going to quit. I mean, that's a key part of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, but even beyond that, I think you can be. I want to know that the founder has empathy and interest in the problem. Sometimes you might just be, there's people who won't quit because they're dogged, because they have a drive for success and the accolades that come with it. That's great too. I mean, I love those qualities as well. But for better or for worse, we probably really want people to have some empathy, insight, and deep compassion for the problem they're solving for the customer. It doesn't mean that they're not going to piss people off, right? Like, they don't have to be nice people in the sense of if you're eliminating a middleman, if you're upsetting the status quo, if you're tipping over the apple cart, like there's going to be people who are pissed at you. That's fine. But I think you need to fundamentally believe that when you're done building what you're building, you will have benefited your customer. And so I sort of call it like disrupt with love as opposed to disrupt with contempt, right? Especially as software transforms all these industries that predate the PC, agriculture, construction, so on and so forth. The stereotype of, two 23-year-olds coming in and saying construction is broken, because, it doesn't have a lot of people from Stanford. We're building an algorithm, and this algorithm is going to solve that problem. And you can feel like the disinterest in actually understanding their customer. You can feel like the we're better than them, like dripping off these people. And I just don't think, I don't want to get up every morning and work with those founders. And one reason that we stay relatively small, funds under $100 million, is we get to decide who we want to work with. We don't have to be all things to all people. And two, I think those companies ultimately fail because they don't become as great as they could be. Because they don't want to spend time with their customer. They don't want to understand the full idea maze. So yeah,
Where do you
that's
find
my
yourself,
bias.
Garry, in terms of your Goldilocks zone? What's the perfect stage, founder, product, market, whatever?
Yeah, it's a great question. At this point, with the $225 million fund, we obviously have to do sort of multi-stage, and so I want to continue to. We're still doing very early, sub $5-6 million pre-money caps for very early companies where they just literally started. And at the same time, we want to be able to do, basically pre-A all the way up to like small A's. And to us, it's the reason why multi-stage makes sense is that there's basically infinite capital in the world. Like, it doesn't, as an engineer coming up, as a founder coming up, it didn't seem like that. But now working in finance for this long, now I realize that's truly true. The only people who can actually make yield from scratch are software engineers and designers and product people in this room who are actually going to go and make those things. And so if those things are true, there's basically infinite number of very smart engineers and designers making stuff, and there's infinite capital, then I've hired actually a whole team of 8 partners in order to actually help you with design, product, engineering, all of the pre-product market fit stuff. We think pre-product market fit is the most interesting and requires the most amount of help, and that's why what you're doing with launch is so incredibly important. So that's the most important thing to me. There's giant number of people who only invest post-product market fit. We want to be the absolute best at funding pre-product market fit.
Garry is running a model I hate, but he's doing it really well. In the sense of like,
Why do you hate
I
that
love
model?
working with Garry because he actually has the empathy, interest, and understanding. I think there's a bunch of people who mimic variations of what Initialized is doing, which basically try to throw like a B+ operations team at outsourcing things for startups. And it's like taking a baby and putting it in a robotic exoskeleton. Like that baby's going to lift a car, but the minute you take the exoskeleton off, it's like a flabby baby that doesn't know how to do, things for itself. And these great companies like
Are you referring to Andreessen Horowitz?
No, they didn't do seed. You want founders.
Because that was their big innovation when they came in, was we're going to not take our management fee and put a whole bunch of services.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. Different companies.
Do they do a good job?
Different companies. We have a bunch of investments that have done their A's or B's from Andreessen, and all of them find ways to extract tremendous value out of that model. It's not necessarily though, oh yeah, we use every part of the services. It's picking the 1, 2, or 3 things where you think that getting information or access to information faster will move you forward. So it might be like, oh hey, they know how to, we're trying to sell into governments and they have a great government relationships team and they can really up our game. But hey, I don't necessarily need to use their recruiting function, right?
Got it. Because Andrea, the negative spin on that from other venture firms, which they all seem to have kind of sharp elbows with each other, which seems unnecessary, but I don't get that exactly, since it's so collaborative. Like there's 50 people on the cap table. Why does everybody need to swing their elbows around so much? But
because there's only one person who gets 20% at Series A.
I guess that is the answer, isn't it? I guess when we're seed, it's like, well, I got 6%, or I got 12, or I got 8, but next time you got 12 and I got 8.
Yeah, we all work together all the time, and it's great if you, sort of then can still get the logo on your page and your growth fund, but there's only one firm that gets the 20% at Series A, and for the best companies, that's the historic fund maker.
Yeah.
I think that's changing. I think part of it, like venture itself hasn't existed for more than 50 years as an industry, really. And really it's grown mostly in the past 20, 25 years. And so just because 20% is the gold standard doesn't mean it will be forever.
Yeah.
Oh, and fund sizes are going to need to correct for that both ways. There's a lot of mediocre investors and sort of institutional LP models almost like necessarily keep them in business, because if you're going to take 5% of an endowment and put it into venture, you can't concentrate it just in 1 or 2 funds. It's too much money, and those funds aren't growing, won't take $300 million from you. So you're constantly sort of trying to find, you've got 2 seats you like, and you're constantly then trying to sort of put 2 other investors in 2 other seats, except it takes 10 to 15 years to figure out if those investors are any good. So there's always going to be like a shuffle of, hey, this person makes our risk model work, and we don't know whether they're a good investor or not.
Let's talk about turning your idea, your amazing idea, into a new website, whether it's a blog or you're publishing content, maybe you're selling products or a service of some type, or you want to promote your physical or online business, or like me, you're having an event like Launch Scale, and you want to make a gorgeous, amazing website, maybe one with a beautiful video in the background like this, maybe one that's responsive and that people can see perfectly on their mobile phones and their desktops and their iPads and their widescreen monitor. And that's just optimized for speed, design, and mobility. Yes, you can see these perfectly on your desktop or on your mobile phone, and it's all search engine optimized. You got plenty of analytics and 24/7 award-winning customer support. That's what you get with Squarespace. Squarespace.com. I use it for all of our websites, Launch Scale and the Angel Summit, Launch Festival Sydney. Why do we use it? It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's affordable. It's a great deal. It's got tons of features. And everybody on our team knows how to use it. Updating the website is not arduous anymore. It's easy. When I say update the website during a meeting at lunch, we have staff lunch, it's updated in real time. People just go zip, 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 and get it done. So go to squarespace.com and get a free trial. When you're ready to launch your site, use the offer code TWIST and save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Yes, use the promo code TWIST and you'll save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Squarespace.com is awesome. I love it and use it constantly. Go ahead and visit squarespace.com and get that free trial and use that promo code TWIST to save 10% off the first purchase of a website or a domain name. Thanks again to our friends at Squarespace for being one of the longest running supporters of This Week in Startups. It really means a lot to me, and it means a lot to our team that you make such great software that we get to use here every day. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode.
Andrew, how do you get people ready for Series A and to deal with these firms? How do you counsel them, since you're really an angel, pure angel, like putting in what, 250, 500 typically, I think is your check size? How do you prepare them and help them navigate a venture round, a Series A?
So first of all, I'd say from the get-go, our decision-making process is a little bit more personal because it is our own capital. And so for us, we're not just checking boxes and saying, okay, this quarter we've invested $1 million or whatever it is in X amount of companies. So for the companies that we do decide to invest in, like I said, it's very personal. We take the time to get to know, what their product is all about, what they need in the market, who they need to talk to. And on the flip side, we're also constantly going to the right events, keeping tabs with the folks that we know at Facebook and Google and, all the ones that you can think of and, here in the Valley and in the city. And I think it's just trying to understand what the fit is going to be. And it's sort of like a game of chess. Like how can you get that particular company in front of the right person? And these decisions don't happen overnight. It's sort of like, it's running a marathon, not a sprint, basically. It takes some time to get them in front of the right people. And I think that's what our group is really good at, that it's taken us, the last 10 to 12 years to build these relationships in the Valley. And for us, like I said, it's very personal.
And you guys helped us with Posterous with our Series A, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
And what was her advice? How did she?
I mean, a lot of it was sit down, look at the pitch. Doesn't make sense. A lot of the stuff that you were doing early this morning, it's the simple stuff that, when we were first timers, we didn't know all of this basic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some examples of what we did with Gary's group is, we took the time to go in, and my background is sales, so we looked at your presentation that you were getting ready to go out to market with and just sort of gave some general feedback and learned from you guys too, what was working for you, how could we help improve. Definitely don't get in the way. Our big motto is don't get in the way, just see what we can do to help. And then also, my business partner, Pietro, he was essentially the acting CFO at Google, so we took some time to look at your finances and, like that little bit more personal approach. And we have the time to do that. Essentially, there's only 2 of us, and we have over 100 companies, but we still take it very personally and put our best effort, our best foot forward.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we learned a lot from our experience with you simply because actually having operators help, that was the most helpful thing for us when we were working on our startup. So
Gary,
we're very inspired.
Hunter said he hates your model, but you executed it incredibly well. What do you think is the secret sauce there? Because he basically just dissed you and said, hey, you're taking this like a little baby and put an exoskeleton in. So let's just, I know there's no conflict here in reality, but let's pretend there is. Give your best defense of your robotic baby philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it's actually about how do you scale venture. And so, venture itself, most people look at it as a fairly boutique thing. It's very hard to raise a fund. It's very hard to have a track record. Once you actually do that, do you build a team and do you share the economics and do you share decision making? And that can be really hard because frankly, like how do you even make that decision? You work so hard to get here. Are you going to let other people, pull the trigger on checks? And that's actually very hard for a lot of organizations to do. For us, that's something that's very important to me as managing partner of Initialized to actually get right. Because going back to my first principle, hey, there's a ton of capital. Hey, there's a ton of really, really great founders out there. And our whole job is how do we make that magic happen a lot more? Most people go out there and there's this idea that Andy Rachleff came out and said there's only 10 companies a year that really matter. But I think Eric Feng just put out a great Medium blog post that I thought was very important for tech that people didn't pay enough attention to. And that's that the billion-dollar exits in the past 10 years have gone up by 7x. 7x, that's a lot. That's not a little. That's a wave. And so why is it that we are still using the same ideas for venture funds from 10 years ago or 20 years ago? Maybe those percentage ownerships should come down. Maybe instead of a very closely held boutique partnership, we should actually be able to build teams of operators, give them check writing ability, and then work together as a hive mind instead of a wolf pack. And those are the things that we spend a lot of time thinking about. I hope it works. I think it will.
It's very interesting. I can't help but think about what happened in the NBA, since we have the Warriors here, and they created this new Moneyball system. D'Antoni did it in Phoenix, and then obviously in Houston, where just score in 7 seconds or less, do 3-pointers, and we all grew up in a defensive-minded NBA with Patrick Ewing and Hakeem Olajuwon playing back to the basket, and then somebody just realized, wait a second, you get 50% more value if you hit a 3, and a 3 is only a couple of percentage points harder to hit than a 2. So just take 3s and just chuck 3s, and it's a better model, and now that's changed the NBA radically. It almost feels like that's happening in venture now, or at least in the early stage, where the VC firms that we used to all pitch for a $3 million Series A, They're really doing Series Bs, aren't they, Hunter, in your mind?
I think that there's, Gary was talking a little bit about sort of stats that the industry needs to absorb, and one that's been talked about a lot over the last year has been, the dramatic increase in number of seeds without, associated increase in the number of Series A's, right? So that there's really kind of a throttle at that point in terms of what you need to do to get to that Series A. For a variety of reasons, large funds, a lot of overhang in terms of companies that they're still trying to get off the boards of, so capacity issues. The Series A, Series B funds are becoming more interested in outlier potential and less interested in stage-specific risk. So if you can come in at a Series A or Series B and show real signs of being an outlier, which means not just hitting your 2 million ARR, but being 3x better than the 10 SaaS companies that walked in before you and the 10 that they're likely to see next. They are ownership sensitive, not price sensitive. So if you're in a position as an entrepreneur where your metrics are ahead of your peers, you're never going to have a hard time raising, and it's never been a better time to raise. If you're at a place where you believe you're building a quote unquote nice business, but your metrics are not yet ahead of your peers, you really need to come up with a hook that says the inflection point is right around the corner, and then figure out the right partner for you. Or you need to be in an area that's not yet mature, right? So the idea that, hey, the space that I'm operating in and of itself, don't talk about adjacencies, don't talk about the next 50 companies I'm going to see that look like me. My space is going to produce a multi-billion-dollar outcome, and here's why I am the leader in this space, and take that bet now. That's where sort of the FOMO kicks in, where everybody's like, oh, well, I need one of those in our portfolio, versus, there's 100 fintech companies, 100 SaaS companies looking like, exactly like the person who just, left the partner's office and the person who's going to walk in next.
They want the Robin Hood or the Wealth Fund.
Yeah, and so that's the reason why, I think all of us have probably seen a little bit more. I don't think of it as seed round anymore. I think of it as seed phase, because sometimes we're very interested in proactively writing a second check into that company before they go out for their Series A.
We just started
because
doing
they're
this
going to push,
ourselves.
because we know that the market will reward them disproportionately for coming in further up the ARR curve. They could go out and raise, but they could raise at 3x with the right partner and knowing the round structure they want if they just went for another 6-12 months. And since we're in the business, we're long-term greedy, we're not short-term greedy. I don't need to prove to my LPs with 12-month markups. I need to prove with exits.
Yeah.
We're more than happy to sort of double down.
Put another $1 million in, take another 5% or something, and have a bigger outcome after that.
Vettery is a hiring marketplace connecting top tech talent with growing companies like yours. All the candidates are vetted before they appear on the platform. This is super important. There's no duds. And a new batch of candidates appears every single Monday, right when you're ready to get to work. And it's great for startups or anybody looking to expand their tech team. Vettery released this comprehensive tech salary report for 2018. I'm holding it in my hands. And they've collected data from 4 popular tech hubs. You know these hubs: New York City, my hometown; San Francisco, where I live now; LA, where I lived for a decade; and DC, where I have never lived. But I'm in 3 or 4 of those cities I've lived. And you can compare premiums, and it provides breakdowns of compensation by geography. It also compares position salaries over the progression of years. The salary report is available to Twist listeners for free at vettery.com/twist. Vettery.com/twist. That's VETTERY.com. VETTERY. 2 T's in the middle there. VETTERY.com/twist. Learn exactly how much software engineers, data scientists, designers, and more are getting paid with this amazing report from Vettery. Use it to make the right offers and to build the best team. It's critical that you go into these negotiations with the data, and you can get all the data right now at vettery.com/twist. 2 T's there. Vettery.com/twist. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode.
Andrea, when you pick companies and founders to work with, are you thinking about these downstream investors and how they're going to look at the opportunity? Or do you just think, great founder, great product, great market, there's enough information there? Are you thinking, can this get to 100 million in revenue, or just that's kind of an abstraction?
No, absolutely. You were talking earlier about when entrepreneurs always put in that profit or the the nonprofit spin, and it's not very attractive. So same thing, even though it's our own capital, we're still not running a charity. We are looking for, growth, revenue, all that kind of good stuff. So absolutely, before we even write that very first check, we're, kind of looking into the future, like, is this company going to be interesting to the Andreessens of the world, or the Sequoias, or the folks along the food chain that are going to write those
What do
bigger,
you perceive
larger
they're
checks?
interested in today?
Well, I'm thinking of the latest one that we just sent to Andreessen. I don't know if we can name names, but okay, so it's a company called.
I give you permission.
Okay, it's called GoShare.
Yeah.
And we absolutely love this guy. He's actually based in San Diego, and you wouldn't think of San Diego as like the hotbed of, entrepreneurs and things like that, but it's starting to sort of become that. So anyways, based in San Diego, and this guy just runs such an efficient operation. And his tagline is, "Your friend with a truck." So it's basically, when you go to Costco and you find that barbecue that you like and you think that's really interesting, but there's no way I can put this half-ton stainless steel barbecue in my truck or in my car. So I essentially need to hire a friend with a truck, and that's what their company does. But at any rate, so he just tracks every single metric. And every time he sends an investor update, which is something we definitely like, and I would encourage every entrepreneur to constantly, if nothing else, over-communicate with your investors. But we see these things, and they come across our desk, and it's just off the charts. It's always up and to the right with all of his metrics. So he presents himself very well. He's very organized. And so with great confidence, I immediately thought, well, shoot, I just met with, my favorite folks at Andreessen. I'm going to put this guy in front of them, and let's see what happens. And luckily, they loved him, and he followed up with them, and same thing like with us. He was over-communicating. He was very clear with his objectives. He wasn't wasting the investors' time, just like he didn't waste ours. And phenomenal. And
There's something about taking the work seriously. We have this internal phrase we use, which is do the work and take the work seriously. Like, this is not like a hobby. And I think there's a lot of people right now who are looking at like, oh, I'm going to try on being an entrepreneur. And we're like, we're kind of serious about this.
Oh yeah, just like with us. I mean, we are angel investors, and essentially it's our own capital. We don't have anyone to report to but ourselves, but we take ourselves very seriously.
Yeah.
And so we'd like to think that the entrepreneurs that we invest in take their businesses very seriously. So you're absolutely right.
We actually made it contractual that the founders we invest in have to do 10 updates a year. And it's in our contracts with them. And I literally had a founder who we've had incredible success with, and he's doing a Series A, and it's going incredible, and revenue's just tripling every couple of months, and it's got term sheets, and his lawyer fought me on it. So, I've never seen this before. And I was like, okay, well, shut the fuck up. Like, I'm talking to you. I'm to call the founder. Like, what is your lawyer breaking my chops about? And he's like, well, we're going to send those 10, but we just don't want to have like some weird term in there. I'm like, can I explain to you why that term exists? When we syndicate your company, all the angel investors out there have been burned by companies not sending updates.
Yeah.
And if you just agree to do this, you'll get more credibility and get future investment. So just agree to it because it's in your own best interest. And we're not going to sue you if you miss a month.
Did you settle on that 10 but 2 can be gifts? That would be my negotiation. Okay, I'll commit to 10, but 2 can be ironic gifts.
No, I was just like, I mean, it was also like being an angel investor. Like, people were like, oh, you don't get pro rata, and you don't get to keep your pro rata. And I was like, well, no,
that's not true.
I was like, that's not true. Like, we got to change that too.
Oh, that's another thing. Now, so these companies don't realize, everyone gives pro rata away like it's free.
Yeah.
And these companies don't realize sometimes the overhang that comes with, now that every angel is a fund, like when I understand why it makes sense and blah, 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 blah. But like when I was growing up, when I was an angel investor, you were just happy to get into the round and then do work. And then if you did work, you were happy to maybe get invited into the next thing. And now because everyone's got either like $10 million of dark money behind them or has raised their own thing.
Infinite capital people.
Yeah. So, and look, we love angels, so like we don't fight that obviously, but I feel part of my job as a lead investor then is to make sure that the founder is getting the full value out of their cap table. And so, if you want to, invest with me frequently, like you're going to do what you committed to do for the founder.
Right. But you get pro rata.
Yeah.
And you won't deal with a deal without pro rata.
No.
But you resent angels having it.
No, I didn't say I resent. I say that I make sure that everybody who gets pro rata works for it.
Got it. I'm just trying to mix it up a little bit and keep the audience
I understand.
entertained.
I thought now that the double zeros are up, I can say whatever I want. I thought for sure, like usually when we come up here, you start throwing like politics stuff, you start going
Nope.
crazy things. So I'm
Not
like,
gonna do
what's
any
going on? This is a
politics.
kinder, gentler Jason.
We're winning so much. Okay? Launch Fund is winning. Okay. 6 unicorns. You may have heard of a couple of them.
Do you practice that in the mirror? That's kind
No, what I do is
I'm glad this distance is between us now.
it makes my wife insane. And so I just do it. I just drop it into the middle of conversations like, it's a great school. I think we should consider it. I mean, it's a little bit expensive, but.
Hey, look, we all grew up in New York. I grew up Queens. I know.
All right. Let's give a big round of applause for these incredible investors for taking the time and being so candid. Andrea Zurek, Garry Tan, and Hunter Walk, 3 of the best investors I know. If you can get a meeting with them, take it.